If you watch any of my videos, you know I love a really good intro sequence, especially for sports. So in this video, I'm going to break down from its entirety this intro sequence, the cameras I use, how I film the clips, my timeline settings in Premiere Pro, and all the sound effects. So that was a quick little edit that I made at the AAU Junior National Volleyball Tournament in Orlando, Florida, just last weekend. I was there filming with a player and his team, and rather than just film, him playing or their team playing, I always want to make sure I get a ton of B-roll for stuff like this, whether it's signs or logos or random things that I see at the event, people walking in, escalators, like people everywhere. I love getting all the B-roll so I can help tell the story and not just show the highlights, because when I edit for sports, I really want to create the feeling that someone is actually there, not just watching the game. I'm going to break it down to a T, exactly how I edited it, exactly all of the sound effects I use, where I get those sound effects, and even all of the effects that I do, because of the couple effects that are there or the transitions that are there, I manually did most of them. There is a plugin I use. There's actually two plugins I've used for this edit. I'll go over that as well. But yeah, let's just dive right into it. I've got my screen here. So as you can see, I'm in Premiere Pro. I'm in the editing workspace, and I have my timeline open of that sequence. And I want to show you the sequence settings just so you guys can fully understand everything I'm kind of working with here. So my time base, or my FPS, is 24 or 23.976 to be exact. And I did do this in a 1920 by 1080 ratio rather than a 4K, because I was planning on putting this on social media, and social media, compresses everything. So those are my basic settings for this timeline, and most of this footage was either filmed in 24 frames a second or in 120 frames a second. Whenever I film sports, I film in 120, and whenever I'm filming B-roll at a tournament or whatever, I put it in the 24, especially when I'm doing shots like this, like these quick whip pans here. I'll do these in 24. These shots here are in 24, which causes that motion blur right there. And then this shot that I've added optical flow to, which I will explain how to do that, this was filmed in 120 because it's actual gameplay. You might get sick of the sounds, but we're going to watch it a lot. So this is literally like not even 11 seconds, and I feel that at the beginning of a highlight edit or something like that for a tournament like this, or for whatever sports you're filming, even if it's just a local game, something like this can really bring out the expectation of the rest of the video, and it's going to make the viewer want to watch even more. And so let's just dive into this first clip here. We are going to mute everything first to talk about this clip. So I filmed this with my Sony FX III and my DJI Osmo Pocket 3 little camera. I love that camera. I use it for shots like this, B-roll shots of signs and things. I used it for this hyperlapse, this lazy little hyperlapse that I will talk about how I did that. I don't know if I used it for anything else in here. Yeah, I used it for a ton of stuff, just those two clips in this specific thing. But with this, this is literally just a tilt up from the floor to show off where it says "Welcome to Boys Nationals." I think I filmed it in 4K 60. I don't really remember. I literally just opened it up, and whatever it was set to, I filmed it. And I did film this on my Osmo in D-Log M. I think it's D-Log M, which is DJI's version of log, but it's kind of like a cheap version of log, so it's not exactly log, but it still helped me get a good color correction for this, because without the color correction, that clip looked like that, which is blech. So I color corrected it, and as you can see over here in my color panel, I do all of my own manual color correcting. I did use the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 D-Log M to Rec 709 conversion LUT, and then from there I made all of these adjustments myself. Because this is a slow rise up, building anticipation with that riser sound that you hear right here, and then it has some hits, I like to do a slow moving or a slow feel like this into quick. And so you'll notice the next few scenes are very quick. I've got this hyperlapse that I did, and I've got these kind of whip pans showing off things here. I've got that little transition effect, this black and white grainy effect, which I'll talk about. I've got this transition whip where you just shake your camera really fast. I did that. And that all happens within a couple seconds of this really slow clip here. And so we really like doing that just because this with the riser builds anticipation, and then with all of these sound effects it really goes into it. So while we're covering these, let's talk about these sound effects here. Actually, no, we're going to talk about all of the sound effects at the end, just so this can kind of stay in like an order. And so right now we're going to be talking about the clips. Yeah, that clip was just filmed with my DJI, and I just tilted it up from the ground. This clip, this is a little more tricky. So this is what I like to call a lazy hyperlapse, because this is just me filming. So let's show it to you. I'm going to click on that. If you don't know, this is a nested sequence, meaning this is kind of like a folder. And so I'm going to double click it, and it's going to open up into what is inside that folder, which is this clip here. And so when I mean a lazy hyperlapse, I really mean rather than take 1,000 photos and center that AAU logo on that banner, I just filmed it and I walked in a circle, or I walked in a line around it. And using the DJI Osmo 3, I tracked this center logo on this banner, and as I walked it was able to keep it in the center of my clip here. And I did a little bit of warp stabilizer to it to right here you can see in my effect controls over here, I did some warp stabilizer, and then I nested that so I could pull a speed ramp right here. And the way that I did that was on the clip itself. If you right click right there and do time remapping and speed, this white line will pop up, and then you can click points. If you hold down command, you can click points on it, and you can raise it or lower it to change the speed of the clip itself. And so as I hover over this line, you'll see that the speed of this section is almost 7,000%, and then the speed of the ending is almost 6,000%, and then even in the middle it's at 1,500%. So the whole clip is fast. But when I do hyperlapses like this to show banners, I really like to, go really quick into it and then slow it down, show the banner so you can even actually see it and kind of read it, and then speed up out of it. So that looks like this. And then on top of that, over in my effect controls, you can see I did a color correction, which you can't really see because I also added this monochrome punch. This is literally just a Lumetri preset over here in the in the effects tab. Lumetri presets, monochrome punch. I like using that because it just makes it look like a really punchy black and white shot. And then with the motion blur you see with like how you can't really see these people, I use this plugin right here called RSMB, and that is Real Smart Motion Blur. And I love using that because frame by frame it goes in and it adds actual looking motion blur. Now when it comes to something at 7,000%, you're going to get these weird warbly looking people or things on your scene. Like this is a bar where that was holding a camera and it looks totally crazy. That's because of this motion blur. But for a less than 1 second clip, it looks fine to me. I love the look of that motion blur. So now let's talk a little bit on how I transitioned into that shot. So these purple clips right here, these are just adjustment layers. And what I've done was a couple frames before the intro Welcome to Boys Nationals started, I pulled this adjustment layer, and over in my effect controls, I'm going to be showing you the effect controls a lot, so pay attention to that. I have this invert effect, which literally just inverts the colors. Like, it's nothing crazy, but I like to do that because it adds a little bit of a flash. And then I did a 1 frame flash invert, and then nothing, and then the same thing. So 1 frame, nothing, another frame of it, and then a couple frames, 2 frames into this sequence of the hyperlapse, I added another adjustment layer that has that same invert effect. But because this has the monochrome punch preset on it to make it black and white and really contrasty, this looks really cool because that entire black ceiling turns white. And so that just kind of adds that little flash, and that one is 2 frames long. So that just does this. Add some super simple flashes, literally no transition, no special effect right there, just an adjustment layer with one single effect on it, and the proper spacing, and of course the proper sound effects, which we will get into. So right after this clip, I go into a kind of a whip pan where I'm handheld holding my FX3, and I just whip it up from the ground. It's filming in 24, so you see this motion blur on there, but I'm literally just grabbing it and I just whip it, you know, left and right, up and down, all different directions, so I can pick a proper direction later. And so with that, I have this motion blurry whip pan showing that stage, which is where all the winners of this tournament will eventually stand on. So that was a cool little shot, and this is, you know, maybe 15 frames. And then from there, I use another plugin that is these blue clips right here, and this is called Fast Effects from Tiny Tapes, and I will show that to you. So it looks like this. It's a plugin. You can have it in your Premiere Pro. It's in my effects workspace, and it's right here, Fast Effects. It looks like this, and then I can just go to the transitions, and I can just pick any of these. And I really like to do these black and white ones. As you can see, there's like a little preview of it right there. It adds a lot of grain. It adds a lot of just, I think, feel to it. With it, you know, quickly going into black and white. The really cool thing about it is as you use this, I'm going to use Shift Command E to disable those clips. It doesn't actually do anything to the bottom clips, but you pick the area that you want this to go, you turn it on, and then it creates these whole new clips by itself. And so I just have these on, meaning if I didn't have this yellow clip on down here, then when that was over, it would just be nothing, because these are also active clips being shown. And again, I am using Shift Command E when I do that, disable those clips, just as like a little hotkey to disable them. But yeah, so that's the Fast Effects from Tiny Tapes plugin, and one of the black and white transitions. And then it moves into what you're seeing here of this shot. Now this is really cool because as you see, there's 2 yellow clips right here, meaning this is a duplicate clip, and if I turn off the top one, then the whole thing goes black and white. But if I turn that back on, it's just the color on the ball, and that was done with a mask. And so my original clip was right here, and I put on, in my effect controls, you can see I put on that monochrome punch, and then from there I doubled the clip, so I duplicated the clip. Just dragging it up and holding Option, you can duplicate a clip in your timeline. What I did was I used the new Premiere Pro Object Mask tool, which is down here. And if you click on that and you just click somewhere on your screen, and then you use the trackers over here, it will rotoscope your whatever you've chosen to mask, and so it will create a mask, and not only a mask, it'll create a tracked mask. And so I did that for this ball, and all of these keyframes here, you can they're moving because, or they're keyframed because they're keyframed to the movement of that ball. And with that, I turned it into an opacity mask by dragging it down underneath opacity here, or you can right click on it and it'll pop up and say change to opacity mask, and that's what I did. And so this top yellow clip right here, the whole thing is just that ball. because of that mask, and so I left that in color, and I just thought it looked really cool. You know, it's nothing too crazy. You only see it for like maybe 5 frames, but I think after this section here, it just looks really cool. How you can kind of just see that, but everything else is black and white. This red clip here, this is just another whip pan. So I've got my FX3 in hand, and I'm shooting I'm shooting everything on my FX3 handheld because I love shooting handheld. Anyway, I'm holding my camera and I have it in 24 frames a second, and I'm just whipping the crap out of it. You know, I'm going left, right, up, down, and circles, and showing the ceiling and the lines. I don't even know what I'm looking at here, but doing that, you can use in-camera footage for a quick little transition, which again, I'll show it to you after this black and white volleyball shot right there. It's just that little, you know, that little motion. And because this is a really quick motion, the very next clip, I have an optical flow slow motion scene of this guy going up to serve this ball. And that's just so beautiful to me. Really fast, slow. And then he hits it. And then another whip pan down. So let's talk about, or a whip tilt. Let's talk about this right here. So this adjustment layer is just the, let's look here. The adjustment layer is just the color grade on this because I shot this in log. And so that's all the adjustment layer is. We don't have to worry about that. We want to look at the clip itself. So this clip this is the actual clip. I'll copy this here and I'll show it to you over here. This is the actual clip, just him going to serve the ball, right? So that's pretty sweet. What I've done is I chose 1 or 2 frames. I'll just show it to you real quick. So let's do those 2 frames right there. And I've taken those 2 frames and I've right-clicked on it and I go to speed and duration, and for this one specifically I did 3%, and then in time interpolation you go to optical flow. And what that does is Premiere will fill in the empty spaces of what it thinks the frame will be, or what the clip should be, and then it can give you, once you render it, it'll give you a super slow motion scene. But as you can see, if you look up at his fingers, they're kind of like blending in with each other. That's the optical flow doing its job. If you didn't do that, you would definitely see gaps in between where it's moving. So doing that, I'm going to delete these here. Doing that with this clip here, and then adding that specific, or those specific sound effects. And then once he gets up, I just have this section in normal speed of him going to hit the ball. And I do have some sound effects there that I'll cover. And it's just so, I love doing that, where it's like an intro sequence is fast, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, 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 slow. Like, I just love changing it up because it kind of keeps the people guessing of what's going to be next. So let's show that again. And then he just goes and smacks the crap out of that ball. I love that. Okay, and then so the next transition I have is just another invert right here in my effect controls. You can see it's just an invert, and then the lumetri color, I just made it black and white. But it's just an adjustment layer that is 2 frames, and it covers the end of this clip and the beginning of this clip here. And this green one, this yellow adjustment layer is again just a color grade from log to a color correction, I mean. So the green clip, this is once again me doing a really fast whip tilt, and so I'm showing the ceiling, and then I whip down to that big inflated ball right there. And then the next one is me showing this banner, and this is just a zoom. This is just kind of like a crash zoom where I have it in 24 frames a second, so you get this motion blur around this really fast crash zoom. And the reason this isn't really in, or the reason this is, you know, in focus, or at least there's not really blurry, is because that's the center and that's where it's zooming into, and so that's what that looks like. But I have that little crash zoom there, and I love doing little crash zooms like that, especially when it comes to B-roll stuff for signs or players, because it just, without any editing, without any effects, you can add to it with just a basic in-camera shot. Because these last two clips look like that. Just a little whip and then a crash zoom. And that's it. Those are all the clips. So let's watch it again now that you've kind of seen those clips, and then I will go over these sound effects. Such a nice little sequence. Okay, so all the sound effects here are in green, and I've gotten all of these sound effects from either Ocular Sounds or Sounds from the Den, which is by Carlos, I think his last name's Herrera, but we all know him as Lobo Films on Instagram. He has a few sound effect packs, and I really like them. I don't have a ton of his sound effects on this specific edit, but I've done others with only his sound effects, but a lot of this is Ocular Sounds. So let's go into it. So first we have a riser. That's this green one right here, and that builds intention. That builds anticipation. That kind of gets the feel of the video going. And then right at the end of the riser, I have a crispy old school camera sound effect. So right there you can see crispy old school screenshot shutter from Ocular Sounds, and that is in their, let's go to my sound effects here, Ocular, that is in their camera shutters pack. I don't know if they still sell it or not, but I have that camera sound. I have this camera sound, which is, let's look at this, clicky shutter from Ocular Sounds, also from the camera shutters pack. And I have those two because using those, I like to mix with these style of inverted transitions that I do. So let me disable all of these so you can kind of see what that sounds like. So with just those two camera sound effects, it's this. Super simple, but it adds so much to it. Let me turn these ones back on, and then I have a whoosh hit, 1, 2 right there, both from Ocular Sounds Forged pack. Forged is really good for sports. I like that a lot. So yeah, so this is Ocular Sounds whoosh hit, tension, and then one for action. And then down here at the bottom, I have a short rise and hit smooth, and this is actually something that might keep you guessing here. I'm going to show exactly where it's at. This is in the Cinematic Stone pack of Ocular Sounds right here. I love using this pack when it comes to time lapses or hyperlapses like this, and let me show it to you. So this is what that sound is. I love this pack. Cinematic Stone is what it's called. But if you'll notice, I've only used a little bit of it. I've only used right here. So just, it sounds like rocks falling off of a cliff, right? Let me disable all of these, and I'll show you what that is. So that adds that like kind of warbly, like whooshing, almost kind of like motion sound effect for this hyperlapse here. And then with all of these back on, it sounds like this. So layering your sound effects is really important. You don't want to just use one or two, especially if you're doing it like a kinetic edit like this. You really want to have it layered like that. You don't always have to have layers. You could easily do something really cool with like one or two sound effects. But when it comes to really high action intros like this, I'd layer tons of sound effects. All right, let's go next. So now we're in these whip pans. So the first thing you'll see is this right here. And this is just an impact sound effect from the Quantum pack from Ocular Sounds. That is a really good one that I use for sports and edits like this. I will disable all of these, and I'll show you what that sounds like. So this sound effect right here is just this. It's like that high frequency but also low bass hit. I love impacts like that when you're creating kind of sounds like this, because when you're doing sound design, you don't have to make it sound like exactly what's gonna like be on the screen. That's for ambiance, and that's for like feeling the video. When you're doing stuff like this, you want to use the sound design as almost like a totally another edit that doesn't just look pretty, but it sounds pretty, and it keeps the viewers watching what you're doing. And so anyway, yeah, that's what that sounds like. And then I also have down here another impact from the Quantum pack, and then another impact from the Quantum pack again. And so let's show you what this one sounds like. I will disable all of these. So that's, oh, let's mute these ones too. So that's another just, you know, kind of like, you know, distorted a little bit, heavy bass impact sound that I've layered with that other one. I will activate now. So you get like that bassy sound mixed with this distorted sound. And then I have this other one, which I will show you what it sounds like by itself. That's more of like a bassy reverb, or almost kind of like an echo. And layering all three of those, I should really organize this more, sounds like this. So it just goes into the creation of what I want this edit to feel like. And then once we move on from that, we're going to turn these ones on and these ones off. And this is going to, these right here are going to be the start of this fast effects transition with this black and white grain. So let me show you what that is. So that's just, you know, like a impact. There's this pack right here, and it's called a movement sweetener in the forged pack that I already mentioned. Let's show you what that is. That's a movement sweetener. Actually, I'm just going to show you the what the whole sound effect sounds like. So in that forged pack, you'll have all of these, like, you know, sports things, and then in this movement sweetener folder, you're going to have stuff like this. And you'll notice I only use a little bit. I didn't use the whole sound. But, you know, those little things, if you find the right types of footage for it, it can really look really nice and sound very nice as well. But I have that mixed with the end of those hits that I used for this scene to move into this transition here, and right there. But now that we're moving into the slow motion, I have some brams right here. And so what these sound like without anything else is this. If you ever hear a bram, think of like Thor, Odin's son, arriving to defend all of Asgard, and horns go off, or it's like a single drum hit with a lot of bass at the end of it. That's what a bram is, and specifically, this is what a bram is. And I have two of them here, so let's show you one at a time. So this first one is low pitch, high end synth bass in the A key from Ocular Sound's Powerful Brams pack. It's literally just like a synth bass. I have that to show the slow motion because it's like, that's epic, that's amazing. And then I've mixed in a filtered horn impact in C key, and then that's what this sounds like. And that's, you know, that's a little more on the heavy side. You know, the Viking ships are coming in, something like that. But it builds more of the anticipation in the slow motion. And I just think that sounds really cool. And so together, they sound like that. And then because this slow motion sequence goes into this quick hit of him hitting the ball, I actually have, I'm going to leave these brams on. I have three impact sounds from Lobo films. So it's these three orange sound effects right there. I'm going to show those to you. So we're going to leave the brams on and those impacts. And I found some that kind of sound like someone's hitting a ball, which is literally what he's doing in this. So let's listen to that. We're going to turn off this impact. So we're just going to use these two impacts actually right here for him hitting the ball. That literally sounds exactly like a ball hit, but it's just an impact. So let's show it to you. So if I reveal this in project, I'm going to show you. This is the, nope, wrong one here. Lobo Films Sounds from the Den Volume 3 Impact folder, and then I've got a couple of them in here. So that's one of them that I use. That's this top one right here, impact number 12, and then I have impact number 1, which totally sounds like someone hitting a ball. And so layered together, it looks and sounds like this. Let me remove these brams so you can totally see that or hear it. Just him hitting that ball. And that is when it's totally okay if something is happening in your footage to put a sound effect like right where it's happening, like, you know, someone hitting a ball or someone, you know, running on a treadmill, or, you know, a swish from a basketball shot going in, and you put like a little sound effect of the net in there. That's when it's good to show like a sound effect with that totally matches what's happening on screen. And adding those kinds of things into an edit like this can really help build it. That just sounds super good. And then I have impact number 4 from Lobo Films right here. That goes into this whip tilts and crash zooms here. And then I also have a couple more from Ocular Sound. So this is an impact. It says Flaming Double. Let's try and pop this box up. This is from the Momentum pack, which you can see right there in gray. And that is a really good pack. I think I've already brought that up from Ocular Sounds as well. And then I have another sweetener here from the Momentum pack, as you can see it right there. So I'm going to turn those on. And to go into this whip, tilt, and crash zoom, this is what that sounds like. With the impact from Lobo Films, the impact from Ocular Sounds, and the sweetener from Ocular Sounds. And that's it. That's the video. Like, you know, it's less than 11 seconds long. It is exactly 10 seconds and 7 frames. Well, technically 6 frames. And let's turn all of these sound effects back on so you can see it one more time. I love to show it. I love that you guys want to learn this kind of stuff. I'm happy to teach it. And here we go. Oh yeah. That's it. Really, editing like this, it takes time and it takes experience, but anyone can do it. There was no way I was editing like this a year ago or 2 years ago or however long ago, right? I've always wanted to, and I finally kind of realized any edit like this, you can just break it down sound effect by sound effect, transition by transition, clip by clip, and you can do it yourself too. You can do stuff like this. You can create this. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something from this. I'm going to link stuff down in the description, whether it's like the gear I used or going into Ocular Sounds. I'm not sponsored by anyone. This is not like a sponsored video. This is me just trying to give you guys free game because I love to teach you, and I hope you guys learned something. But yeah, thanks for watching, and outro.